So I'm heading out to the track in a couple of weeks, and I wanted to show you guys some of the things that I'm doing to prepare and get ready for this event. One part of car setup that's very often overlooked and something that I find to be extremely important is the driver's seating position. It's very common to get your car ready for a track event by getting things done like getting tires mounted, doing an oil change, having an alignment done. Those are all of the basic things. But one thing that's often overlooked is making sure that the seating position is comfortable and is going to help you have the best track day that you can. Now, I've already taken this car to the track 2 times, and I've identified a couple of issues with the seating position that I currently have. I'm pretty good at adjusting the positioning for my own personal tastes, but I'm going to go over a list of different items that are going to be helpful for you to figure out the best seating position for you and your car. The first couple of things that are really important when setting the seating position of your car is your actual seat. Now, there's a couple of things to consider when mounting the seat in your car. The first one is obviously visibility. Are you able to see over the dash? Are you able to see all of your surroundings without having any blind spots? The next thing to consider is actual comfort. When you're sitting in the car, is it comfortable for you to drive? If you're driving in a position that isn't comfortable, you're going to be constantly adjusting yourself, and this is going to cause you to make mistakes while you're driving. Another thing to consider with the seat mounting is, do you have clearance for a helmet? Oftentimes people will adjust their seating position not thinking that they're going to have a helmet on their head, and they might have an issue with clearancing above their helmet. Now, most of this is going to apply strictly to bucket seat mounting in your car. If you still have the original seat, there's obviously not a ton of things that you can do for adjusting the seat base and the angle and those types of things, but it's something to consider when just adjusting the position of your factory seat if you only have a factory seat. The seats I'm using in my car are a pair of Sparco Evos. The driver's seat is a Sparco Evo S, which is their smaller seat, and the passenger is an Evo L, which is their larger seat. Now, I've been using this seat for a couple of years, and it is by far my favorite bucket seat that I've sat in. Over the years, the Sparco Evo line of seats has changed quite a bit. It used to be much bulkier on the sides. These side shoulder areas were bigger. The side bolstering was different. The leg pad was much larger, and I found that that wasn't as ideal as I wanted in my own personal seats. Oftentimes, I would pull some of the cushions out to get my leg area more comfortable. But the latest version of these Sparco Evos has exceeded all of my expectations. So the design now has a much lower side bolster, a much smaller lower front cushion so that you can move your legs around easily, and the shoulder area is more compact than before. So it not only fits better in smaller cars, but it's also more comfortable when you're driving. I have these seats mounted on a low sliding rail. These are side mounted seats, and I have them pretty much sitting as low as possible at this point. After driving with this car for a couple of events, I've realized that the seating position is actually a little bit too low. So while I have good helmet clearance, my visibility is not as good as I would like it to be. So the first thing that I'm going to do when readjusting my seating position is start by adjusting the height and the angle of the seat. Raising and lowering the seat, as well as angling the seat forward and backward, can sometimes have a similar effect on your visibility and seating position. Because it's a fixed back seat, when you lean the back of the seat back, what that's going to do is it's going to raise the front of the seat. So oftentimes when you are adjusting the angle of your seat, you're also adjusting the height of your seating position. After you have the angle of the seat adjusted, then you can adjust the height of the seat. Now, when I adjust the height of the seat, what I'm doing is I'm checking my clearance from my legs to the steering wheel. I'm checking my head clearance to the roof of the car. And then I'm also just sort of adjusting to see how comfortable I feel when I'm looking around outside of the car. So as far as this seat in my car goes, the angle of this seat is actually really good. What I'm trying to do when I set the angle of a seat is make sure that my upper torso is not in a floating or a limbo position. If you make the seat too vertical, you're going to find that you have to almost push yourself back into the seat to get comfortable. Now, alternatively, if it's leaned back too far, you're going to find that you're constantly picking yourself up out of the seat while you're driving. So what you want to do is find a position to where when you sit in the car, you can rest your shoulders against the back of the seat without feeling like you're leaning forward or you're having to pick yourself back up. Now, the angle of my seat is actually really good. The only thing that I'm going to adjust in this seating position is the height. Right now, there's a large gap between the top of my head and the roof of the car. So I'm going to end up raising the seat so that I can improve my visibility. The main thing that you're going to be focusing on as far as visibility is over the dash line of the car, you want to make sure that your sight line is above the steering wheel. For me, actually, it's about level with the steering wheel, just using as a horizontal reference to the ground. So after I raise the seat another inch or two, then I'll be able to see much better the front of the car, and I'll be able to point the car at the apexes and the cones and corners as I enter. So the next thing to adjust after you've adjusted the height of the seat and the tilt of the seat is the positioning of the base of the seat in relation to the pedals. Let me show you some extreme examples of when the seat is too close and the seat is too far, so you can understand the best way to figure out where that perfect position is. So in a manual transmission car, there's obviously 3 pedals on the floor. When you're adjusting the forward and back position of the seat, the first thing that I adjust for is going to be the clutch pedal. The thing that you're considering here is the extension of your left leg as you press the clutch pedal. Right now, my seat is too far back. For me to be able to push the clutch pedal all the way to the floor, I have to fully extend my leg straight. This is not only putting a bunch of extra strain on my leg, but I'm also pushing down on the base of the seat here, and this is causing a lot of resistance. This is going to end up causing a bunch of leg strain, and probably over time, I'm actually going to start misshifting because through fatigue of driving for a long period of time, or even just through aggressive driving and not always getting your foot all the way to the floor, I'm not going to be depressing the pedal enough to disengage the clutch. Alternatively, if you're sitting too close, what's going to happen is as you lift your clutch pedal up, your legs are going to start to get into the way of the steering wheel. And when you're sitting too close, this can be a big problem. What I'm trying to do is find a position to where when I depress the clutch, my leg isn't extended. I find a position to where I don't feel any pressure down on the front seat pad and my leg is not fully extended. So right about here is probably a pretty good seating position for me. Now the other 2 pedals, the brake pedal and the gas pedal, are somewhat adjustable. So the brake pedal can actually be adjusted up and down with the rod that enters into the brake master cylinder. So if you find that when you adjust your seat based on your clutch pedal position, but maybe your brake pedal feels like it's too high up, you can start to adjust the pedal position to account for that problem of your leg hitting the steering wheel. Be careful. Oftentimes the brake pedal position will be different when the engine is running versus when the engine is not running. If you have a power brake booster, as soon as you start the car, your brake pedal will be able to be depressed further. So make sure that the engine is running and there's vacuum in that booster before you adjust the pedal position. So that gets our seating position about where it should be for us to be comfortable while we're driving. Now the other 2 things to adjust are going to be the steering wheel position and the shifter position. I always start with the steering wheel position next. So it's very common for me to watch videos of people driving their car aggressively and their arms will be fully extended while they're driving. And when your arms are fully extended while you're driving, you're losing a lot of leverage with your arms and it becomes a lot more difficult to control what the steering is doing. That's why if you look at a lot of professional racing, the steering wheel is actually pretty close to the driver. This not only gives them more leverage with their arms so that they have more movement and adjustability with their hand positions, but it's also going to reduce the driver fatigue in your arms while you're driving. One of the things that I really wanted to change on the interior of my car for the next event was that I did find that my steering wheel was too far away. This is always up to interpretation and everybody has a different feel that they like with their car, but the general rule of thumb that I've found is that when you're strapped into your car, and this is important, put your seatbelt on, if you extend your arms out and the top of the steering wheel is not behind your wrist joint, you're going to start having some issues. So for me personally, even in this seating position, my steering wheel is still too far away. I've actually purchased a 2-inch spacer that I'm going to be using to extend the steering wheel 2 inches closer to me. Let me show you what that looks like. Okay, so I've got my 2-inch spacer installed. Now you can see with my clutch pedal depressed, and I put my arm on top of the steering wheel now, the top of the steering wheel is resting just behind my wrist. I find that this gives you the most leverage here without having your arms too close to you like this. And that way, all of your movements this way clear your seat. So now that we have the distance between the shoulder and the steering wheel set correctly, the next thing is the steering wheel height. A lot of this is going to depend on obviously your seat height position. And for example, since my seat is too low right now, I haven't raised it up yet, my steering wheel actually feels a little bit too high. With my hand on top of the steering wheel here, I'm actually blocking my sight across the dash. Most likely this will be fixed once I raise my seat. Assuming that your car has an adjustable column, you should be able to adjust the steering wheel up and down. Now, when I adjust this steering wheel into the all the way up position, it is way too high. Some of this has to do with extending the steering wheel back, but if you find that your steering wheel is actually blocking your view when your hand is on top of it, you're going to want to lower the steering wheel down. So with the steering all the way down in my car, I'm still a little bit too high. What I'm going to do is I'm going to raise the seat. If that doesn't fix the problem, I'll probably end up making a spacer for the steering column so that I can drop it even a little bit more. But where I am now is already much better than what I had before. Okay, so we've got the seat position correctly. It's leaned back correctly. Our steering wheel is in a comfortable position so that we're not reaching out and extending ourselves while we're driving. We have clearance on our legs. Our foot movements are all unrestricted. Everything is great. Now we have to shift. I'm sure you guys have seen things like shifter extenders and other types of devices that reposition the shift knob so that you can move it around away from the original position. Now, the reason that this is important is because after you go through all the effort like we just did to get your seating position perfect, sometimes that shifting position is not perfect. Now, the thing that's most important when adjusting your shifting position is making sure that after you're strapped into the car, you're able to extend your arm and shift into position without overextending your arm. What you don't want to have happen is when you're reaching for fifth gear, that you have to lean over to shift into the gear. Because as you're holding onto the steering wheel with your left hand and you lean forward, you're actually going to pull the steering wheel to leverage your body forward. The absolute most important part about getting your seating position correct is that you can strap your body into the car and not have any of your extremities, your arms or your legs, have an effect on each other. So if I'm needing to reach to shift into fifth gear and I have to pull myself this way, the shifter on my right hand is now affecting the motion of my left hand. Now, the best test for this is, like I said, just strap yourself into the seat and extend your shifter into your furthest position away from you. In my case, it's fifth gear here. Now for me, honestly, now that I've adjusted my seating position and I've adjusted my steering position, this fifth gear, as you can see, I'm extending my arm out. The shift knob is actually not even in the center of my palm anymore. It's up towards my knuckles. So this fifth gear position is actually too far away for me right now. Luckily, the shifter that I have in this car is adjustable, so I'm going to be able to move the shifter closer to me, which is going to help with that fifth gear selection. Let me adjust that now and I'll show you what it looks like when it's adjusted correctly. Okay, so I've taken all of the interior pieces apart to access this shifter. Now this shifter has the ability to raise and lower the shaft to change the height of the shift knob. It can also rotate like this towards and away from the driver. So those are the first two adjustments that I'm going to make. I'm going to start by moving the shift lever up a little bit, and I'm going to twist it closer to my driving position. Okay, it's probably hard to tell from the video, but now I've adjusted it closer to me and I've adjusted it up. So the last thing I'm going to do to get more extension out of this is I'm going to adjust this JSP shift knob up even further and closer to my positioning. By adjusting the set screw position, I can raise and lower the entire shift knob. So now that I've angled the shifting lever more towards the driver, raised it, and moved the shift knob back, now when I shift into fifth gear, you can see that the shift knob stays in the center of my palm. So when you're adjusting your shifting position, make sure that you're not uncomfortable after you're strapped into the car, shifting into your furthest gear. So now we've got the driver's seat, the steering wheel, and the shift knob all in a neutral and very comfortable position. Go take your car for a drive, and what you're gonna notice is that now that your positioning is correct, you're gonna have more ability to focus on actually driving the vehicle. You'll find that instead of having your arms extended out like this, constantly flailing around, having the steering wheel closer to you will give you much more precise control over the car. So you're not reacting to everything that happens, but you're actually directing the car correctly. Now let me know in the comments if there's anything that you feel that I missed, or add some tips and tricks so that other people that are watching can have more ideas on how to set up their car correctly. I'm gonna go into more videos on the other stuff I'm gonna do getting my car ready for the track in a couple of weeks. Let me know if there's anything else you want me to cover. Thanks for watching.